All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reader Meet Writer. I'm Constance Lombardo, and I'm the author-illustrator of the middle grade Mr. Puffball books. And my latest book, I'll just show you quick. Everybody says meow. Our program today is brought to you by SIBA, the Southern Independent Booksellers Alliance. SIBA represents independent bookstores across the South, including the store that invited you here today. Independent bookstores are so important in bringing books and authors to your community, and please support them by purchasing the book we're discussing today. Yay! At the store that brought you here. Also, please say hello in the chat and shout out the name of your local bookstore. Okay, and today I'm very happy, thrilled, I would say, to be in conversation with the amazing author, illustrator, Torben Kuhlmann. He has won a lot of praise for his wonderfully crafted books that pay homage to the power of invention and imagination with thrilling stories and immersive illustrations. I would say double to that. Torben lives and works in Hamburg, Germany, and he's with us today live from his studio. His mouse adventure series include Lindbergh, The Tale of a Flying Mouse, Armstrong, The Adventurous Journey of a Mouse to the Moon. I love that one. And Edison, The Mystery of the Missing Mouse Treasure. And they have all become international bestsellers. And today we'll be talking about his latest book, the new one, the fourth in the series, which is called Einstein. Yay, double vision. The Fantastic Journey of a Mouse Through Space and Time. And it's brought to us from North South Books. Hello, Torben.
Hello. Nice to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you. All right. I really love this book, honestly. It's so engaging, and it's got a great fast-moving plot and really stunning artwork. And can you please talk a bit about your inspiration for this story?
Well, the biggest question in the beginning was how to continue my cosmos of adventurous mice after one learned to fly, another one went to the moon. So this was the biggest hurdle in the beginning. But I always had an idea to do something a little unconventional, a little more crazy than the previous stories. And for another project, I was thinking about adapting H.G. Wells' Time Machine for a long time, but that never materialized. But there was the idea of doing a time travel story in some capacity. And then someday it all clicked together. It was like a huge collection of puzzle pieces that finally fell into position. And the centerpiece was to integrate Albert Einstein into this curious story about a time-traveling mouse. And Einstein himself provided me with the best window into a time travel story with this, as you say in German, Gedankenexperimente, thought experiments, and the question of what if. And I was under the impression it could be a good idea to ask the question, what if Einstein was inspired by a time-traveling mouse to think about time travel in the first place? So from there, the story developed almost automatically.
That's fantastic. That's really interesting. And I just love the juxtaposition of how big and abstract and scientific the concepts of time and space and time travel, and then his reason for wanting to travel back in time is it's very perfect for a mouse. It's great. I love it. I won't give it away. Great. And I think you do a great job of combining fictional narrative with science. And I'm curious about how much research you did for this book, and is that something you really enjoy?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you mentioned, the main storyline is a more humorous one and rather straightforward. A mouse missing something and desperately wanting to turn back time. That's the through line. And the parts about Einstein and his theory of relativity, and even more strange physical concepts, are only hinted at or hidden within the illustrations. So I hope there is much to discover for every reader.
Oh, there absolutely is. I mean, just looking at the illustrations alone, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a certain page I wanted to show, and now I'm having trouble showing it, but I'll just show one, which is this really fun. I love the time travel machine you designed, or the mouse designed with your help. I don't know if you want to say more about how that specific, it's just really interesting, all the different parts. And was that based on something you saw, or just straight from you?
It's a mixture of different inspirations. For example, I think it's quite fitting to have a time machine built from a alarm clock.
Yes.
And it fits perfectly with the size of a mouse, so it fits inside. And it's a mixture of different things. It's almost like a motorcycle seat within the shell of a alarm clock, and then there's this mechanical contraption behind everything that's generating electricity, and electricity obviously is a very critical component to the time traveling process. As we learned in the movie Back to the Future, there's lightning involved, and in my story as well. Yeah, and there's also a little bit of inspiration from the original H.G. Wells' Time Machine novel and his description of a time machine. So all of that combined makes this time machine.
Well, it's very fun. I love thinking about time travel and that as a possibility. I don't know, but that makes me want to ask you, if you could actually time travel, what time would you want to go to?
Oh, first, I would like to fact check my own stories. They are always set in the past. So I would, for example, like to visit Bern in 1905 and look how accurate I was in portraying that era. And then I will switch the dial to the future, because that's, I think, the most interesting thing you can do with a time machine. Just look ahead and what will come in the future.
That would be really fascinating. I have to say that I would want to go back and see dinosaurs being in the world. I think that would be incredible. But I like
dangerous.
And dangerous. Well, I would hide.
Yeah.
The whole thing planned out.
And there's another very interesting part that might be interesting to do experiments with. The concept of, can you change the past? Is there is everything inevitable? Is there a fate? Because if you change something in the past, will it change yourself, and will it change your memory of the past? So it's many interesting concepts you can explore.
Yes, and that concept is kind of in your book, right?
Yes, it's playing with causality. So
yes,
usually there is a point A, point B, and point C. But if you have a time travel story, you can start with B, and via C you cause A in the first place. So there is there are several instances where causality loops are apparent.
That's great. It's really rich. It's really exciting. And another question I wanted to ask you is, what do you like about writing for young readers?
Well, I think I'm not doing a really specific distinction between young readers and adult readers. while I'm writing, it's just for book lovers and
Yeah.
people who appreciate picture books. But I think the very nice aspect of writing for children is that you have such an enormous potential of imagination. So it's much more easy to grab their attention and throw someone in this imaginary world. And I've seen that during countless book readings, that they are so much within the story
Yes.
with their imagination. And I think that's sometimes a thing that adults tend to lose a bit, the ability
Yes.
to suspend their disbelief and just live in this crazy world that's presented.
I agree. I think sometimes we're just caught up in our everyday so much too that we don't have that same ability to get lost. But I love that you said you're not really writing it necessarily for a specific age, because I agree. I mean, I loved reading it, and I think that, yeah, it's really for any age in that sense. It's just a really fun story. Obviously, I wanted to say Einstein, this book is so cinematic, and I'd love for you to talk about that some, and also if you could tell us what's your favorite movie.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that you mentioned that, because there's always a very substantial inspiration by the language of cinema in my work, because I would describe my process, my working method, as some kind of a drawing cinematographer or a cameraman. I'm presented with a situation, a scene, some part of a story, and I try to find the best camera setup, lighting, situation, composition, almost like shooting a movie. But I try to imagine the scene in my mind and then pick the best still, and that's the illustration I will try to paint and to draw. And
yes, I definitely noticed you do so much with like really wild angles and scale, and that definitely comes across.
Yeah. Sometimes the book almost reads like a storyboard for
Yes.
a motion picture. You can imagine many of the scenes in an animated form. I think that's because of my way of thinking about illustration and how to use picture book like a visual medium. I try to tell as much as possible within the illustrations, and film is also a visual medium. So I think picture books and film are kind of connected, or at least related.
I absolutely agree. And I want to say, someone just commented that each page is so detailed. Peggy, I'm sorry, I missed your last name because it kind of flashed on the screen, but I agree. There's so much to look at. And I read this book very slowly, actually, because I was just like, I have to look at everything.
There's much to discover.
Yes, that's part of what's wonderful about it. And I don't know if you were going to also tell us what's your favorite movie.
Oh, okay. Yes, sure.
Yes. And I'm going to try to find this page.
There are several favorite movies. I grew up with the work of Steven Spielberg, obviously. I think one of my biggest moments of awe, of just being in awe was.
Can you say that name again?
Just one of the most pregnant, and that's the one word, the most interesting moments I had when I grew up was seeing Jurassic Park in the cinema, for example.
Yeah.
And I also like the original Star Wars, the movies I grew up with. And then, of course, there's illustration work of Don Bluth, An American Tale, A Land Before Time. So I think that's my background, the movies I grew up with.
Yes, I love movies too. And I definitely see that relationship between movies and picture books and graphic novels, and your book sort of intersects a lot of those different ideas. And I was going to say, I love all the details and the references. And on one page, and I'm having trouble finding that page, but where there's a little Stonehenge drawing. Do you have that nearby? I was like looking at it and I was like, oh, Stonehenge. And, you know, I don't know how many people, if it's kind of determined that, oh, I love that clock. So that, I don't know if it's correct to call it a clock. Oh, yes. So I don't know if it's kind of determined that Stonehenge was there some relationship about telling time in Stonehenge, or was it a portal for time travel?
No, but you're welcome to you have your own interpretations. But it's a page about the previous methods of time. You're keeping track of time, the passage of time, astronomy, doing the first calendars. So Stonehenge is one of the very first things humans built for keeping track of the passage of time in a way. So it's like a big calendar for sun and moon and maybe stellar formations. So it's an interesting starting point. And from there was the sun clock. I don't know what the English word is for this little clock you turn around with the sand.
Yes,
sand clock. No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just blanking out, but of course I know what you mean. It will come to me in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, I know. Yeah, the sands of time, and I can't think of the word either, but yes.
Yeah.
It is so fun to think about all those different. Oh, but anyway, about the Stonehenge, I was wondering if there are other maybe personal references or, you know, Easter eggs that you may put in the book that you want to tell us about.
Oh, it's full of little hints and allegorations. But for example, I can point to my personal page at the end here.
Yes,
it's a
yes, I love that.
Self-portrait of me dreaming up the story. And if you look closely, you can see several time machines from the past, like that's obviously a DeLorean.
Oh, is it the DeLorean?
Yes, and if you look even closer, there's the TARDIS from Doctor Who, another famous time machine. And there are hints like that throughout the book, but you have to really look closely.
Well, now I'm embarrassed that I didn't notice that it was the DeLorean, but that is really funny. All right. Well, I don't know how you would illustrate time as relative, but you seem to illustrate space as relative in seeing the big city of Bern through the eyes of a small mouse. And I'd like you to talk about, if you could, how you use your art to show scientific ideas. And I will show this one page. I just love the way he's wearing an ice cube.
Because in the previous scene,
it's so
the mouse
cute,
got something on his head.
But all these diagrams so some of this directly from like Einstein's books, or
some of them. I hope that nobody pays too much attention to the mathematics behind that. So, but that's a good example for my method. Obviously, there's a humorous story with a mouse and with an ice cube. Yes. But if you look closely, you can see some real physical concepts in the background. For example, you can see this now famous grid of space-time, this almost like a chessboard, which is bent and turned, and you might be persuaded by my concept of time traveling. For example, down there, you can see space-time folding in on itself, and it's called an Einstein-Rosen bridge, some way to do tunneling through space-time. So I threw a lot of different things out there. So, and you are invited to just
that's great.
interpret it.
it makes it so fun. And then at the end of the book, you sort of more in a prosaic way, if that's the right word, explain Einstein's theories. And I'll be honest, I read those over and over, and it's just I found it difficult, but still fascinating.
It is difficult. It's just a little part of Einstein's theories and his theory of relativity, but yeah, it's complicated. The relativity of time, and that the time is relative to the observer. Yes, and how space as a dimension is also involved with a dimension of time. It's almost inseparable. It's quite interesting, but
it's fascinating.
I had to do a lot of research to even get a little basic overview of Einstein theories. At the end.
So, and maybe this is a dumb question, but so does time is relative? Did Einstein definitely think that time travel was possible, or was that just like he thought maybe, since given these facts that he developed?
Well, within his series, there's just the possibility of relative time travel, that there are two different persons in the universe, and through circumstances like being near a gravity well or being out in space, your time moves different. So you can travel through space near light speed, and your clock almost stops, but not for yourself. You don't experience this time dilation, but on Earth at the same time, clocks move definitely much faster than than the clock on the spaceship. So it is possible to do a near light speed travel to another star and just have a 3-year trip there. And during that time, maybe 80 or 100 years will pass on Earth. So that's the interesting part of relativity.
What that seems to imply to me is that it could be possible to travel to the future, but I'm not getting how that, and I mean, not that I want you to explain, because I'm sure it's just, this is a whole nother conversation. We'll have to have another event just to talk about this, but I'm not seeing the possibility of traveling to the past, even though that sounds
the past is the difficult one.
The tricky part.
The hurdle to travel
bend
back
the time back.
Yes, and that's the thing that Einstein obviously couldn't solve, but this little mouse was able to solve based on Einstein's theories. So there might be some more hidden within this theory. That's the premise of the story in a certain way. And we still keep adding to in the world of physics to Einstein's theories and explore different areas. So maybe someday some idea will pop up and it will be obvious how to do it.
Yes, maybe. That's exciting to think about. All right, now a totally different question. I understand that, relative to the mouse in the book, Kronos, the cat, is a monster. But as a cat lover, I want to ask you, how do you really feel about cats?
Let me first.
Yeah, let's see a picture of the cat. Do you have it nearby?
Yes.
He looks so scary. Oh, he's still cute to me.
Yeah, from a human standpoint, it's a cute black cat living in a watchmaker shop in Bern, Switzerland. But all of the time I try to put myself in the shoes of this little mouse. And
the tiny shoes.
The tiny shoes, and obviously this standard size cat is a giant monster from any mouse's point of view, and I just played with this conception of size. Yeah, there's this little mouse on the ground, and even a normal sized cat is just a giant monster.
Yes, out to get it. I know my cat has been very mean to some mice in the past. I just want, speaking of the watchmakers, clockmaker's shop, this character just, he's so vivid and adorable. I just love him so much. Did you have someone or in mind, or did you see a photo that made you think of the guy with the, I'm not sure if that's not exactly a walrus mustache, but it's something like that. It's just so funny.
A little bit. No, I don't have a particular person in mind when coming up with that older mouse, but there are several little hints. There's a little bit of I think I try to have this mildness of Albert Einstein and his mustache, so a little hints to
I'm going to show
Einstein himself.
I'm going to show the picture again then. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I think of Einstein more as the wild mane, but that is, it's just priceless.
That would have been too much maybe if the mouse had such a enormous hair.
I agree. Oh, the one other thing I was going to ask you was the cat's name is Kronos, and you told me I already don't remember, but I think that the name Kronos has a specific significance.
First, it's a interesting name for this legendary beast living in this watchmaker's store in Switzerland, but it's also the name of the Greek god of time. So it's quite fitting to have time and the god of time itself as an antagonist somehow.
I love it. It worked out well too that the Greek god of time had such a cool name.
Yes. and it's still you can find it in many parts, from chronograph or something like that. There's this Kronos in there. So
well, I thought of the Kronos quartet, but maybe that's something else. That's
maybe, but that might also be a reference to Kronos, the original.
Well, it's been so wonderful to talk to you, Torben, and I could keep talking, but also I believe that you're going to do a drawing demonstration for us.
Yes.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. So let's do it.
Yeah, we have talked a little bit about my process and my technique already, but it's almost always easier to show than tell. That's almost my credo behind everything. Show, don't tell. Again, a reference to the language of cinema. Whenever something can be told through an image, it should be allowed to stand on its own. So right now I will try to use my little setup here and do a rough illustration of a mouse with a clock. So let me just switch my camera setup. I hope everything will work out.
Yes.
So there it is.
There you go.
And yes, let's start. I will use my watercolor box for this one, but today I only will use the black color because of our time limit. There is again the factor of time. Yeah, a brush like this one, and this is watercolor paper. And let's just start with the first little lines. I will start here. It's a little bit complicated to draw in a strange angle, but I hope it will work out fine. So this will be, this will be the mouse. I hope it will be recognizable soon. Ear of a mouse. Can use a little bit more waters, and I can use my black color as a gray color and do some shadows. Oh, I think it's on a good way. Yes, just let me start with the clock itself. That's the middle. Now always tricky to do a perfect circle with a brush and with a weird angle like today. Hope it will be recognizable as a circle. So, and you might recognize what I am trying to do here. It's a mouse looking from behind a old-fashioned pocket watch. So now we can complete the mouse itself, its feet, and its tail. And again, I use more water to have a gray for the fur. Of course, this part of the mouse is hidden in shadow, the shadow of the clock. And of course, we are missing an eye. So completing the clock. And some whiskers. And just a few more details. I hope it's recognizable as a clock right now. So 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. So just a few more lines and a little bit more shadow here. And the mouse's second hand here. So now you have a mouse looking from behind an old-fashioned pocket watch and doing something with the time. So I think that's it. So I will switch back to my normal cam. Yeah, here I am. So, and I think, I hope I could give at least a tiny overview of my my process of doing watercolor paintings.
That was super fun. I love seeing how you work. So when you're doing your finished art, do you usually start with the watercolor and then you add in, is it colored pencil? Or what's the steps when you're doing like the finished art for your books?
Oh, that's a good
This,
point, because
I'll show another page that I love.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, talk about cinematic. That is so fun.
That was interesting to do, because this is a scene that repeats several times in the story. First, we see this attic in modern times, and then there's here the time travel moment with a lightning bolt, and then another time we see the same area in almost 80 years earlier. So it was interesting to do. But answering your question, I use a combination. First, usually I do a little drawing, a pencil drawing, which will be more and more refined. Then I use a fine liner pen, a waterproof fine liner, and then watercolor will be used to fill everything in and give everything a color. But it's a good thing that you mentioned it, because maybe we can finish later with a little demonstration. I've prepared a video showing my process from sketchbook to early drawing and watercolor.
Yes, I let's definitely do that. I'd love to see the video, and I just love your art so much. And I do think it's funny in those attic scenes, the old computers and the telephones, and you really get so much in there. Thank you for doing your drawing demo. And do you want to go ahead and do the video now?
If there are no more questions I should answer, we can move on to the video. Just let me show the different version of this moment.
Yes, let's look. Yes, I love it. So
old-fashioned technology, gramophones.
Yes, the old typewriter. Is that what that's what's in front, right? The old typewriter.
Typewriter, telephone, and Thomas Edison's
the gramophone.
Gramophone cylinder. So very old
the
technology.
Cylinder,
but
right.
Obviously in 1905, it would be not that old technology.
So the cylinder was actually that's what they used to actually record music. You'd sing into it, right? Is that right?
It's for voice recording. It's just a wax cylinder rotating, and you talk into a tube, and it's printed on this wax cylinder. But I think even in Einstein's time, this was not the newest technology.
Okay.
So there was already shellac records or something like that. So the
really
was even
I guess so
more advanced then.
But it's fun. It's fun to see that machine. I like that. The cylinder recording device. There's another word for it? Gramophone is the thing that plays those records.
Yeah,
I think I said the wrong word.
I think it's I don't
cylinder
really
recording.
know. Yeah, especially in English, I am not sure how.
And I should know,
called.
but anyway, that's cool. There's so much that's just great. I love this book so much. I really encourage everyone to get it. You won't be sorry. It's one of those books that you will really treasure. I know I do. I think this probably is a good time to go ahead and show your video.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Let's do it.
Okay. So let me just share my screen again.
All right. So I'll bow out.
Okay. So there it is. And now let's start with the video. You will hear my voice again, but it's not actually me talking, but I'm talking in the video as well. So let's start. Hi everyone! Today we are going to take a look behind the scenes. I'm going to show you how my illustrations are created. In the beginning, I use a sketchbook. This is where I create
a rough first draft. Next I'm prepping the watercolor paper. It gets soaked in water and then placed on a board. First, the now wet paper gets pulled tight. That way, it won't become wavy even when it's getting soaking wet again. I fasten it to the board with special wet tape. Once that's dry, the work can begin. First, I roughly apply the lines of the sketch to create a general composition. The illustration now becomes more and more detailed, first with pencil, but once that's pretty much accomplished, I use the fine liner pen, which of course I won't be able to erase. Once the drawing is done, it's time for the watercolor paint. Now I'm starting to color in the drawing I just created, applying different colors directly while mixing others. I often start with a background or, like in this case, the sky. And this is how, layer by layer and on top of a drawing, the watercolor painting is created. Several hours or even days later, the artwork is finally complete.
So I'm back again.
I'm back too. Torben, that was so exciting. I honestly just love your work so much. And I think it's very special and meaningful to see that you're working in traditional media. I guess it really makes sense too for the kind of books you're doing right now, but it's just, there's just a richness to it and a beauty to it that I think is hard to replicate unless you really are using traditional media. And what I like about it personally also is your drawings are so detailed and so rendered, but they never feel stiff. I think maybe because you are using watercolor, they still have that freshness to them. And I think that's a very hard balance to strike, but you do it. You do a great job. And I just love this book so much.
Yeah,
I'm right.
Happy to hear that.
Yes. It's true words spoken from my heart. I love this book. I truly enjoyed reading it so much. And we're pretty much getting to the end of our program. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Torben, before we do a wrap up?
Well, I hope that there are, because it's just out there in the US right now, I hope that this story will find many interested readers in this crazy time traveling story.
Yes, I feel sure that it will. Just look at that great cover. So thanks again to Torben Kuhlmann and to Siba and to everybody who attended today's event. And I hope you will please consider your local independent consider supporting your local independent bookstore by purchasing your copy of Einstein from the bookstore that brought you here today. All right. Well, thank you again, Torben. It's just been a joy talking to you today and seeing how you work and getting some insight into your process.
It was a pleasure for me. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you.